It is.
It is, thank you. Although it's a great share, sometimes a little bit intense. And tonight we are hoping that we're going to have a much more informal and relaxed evening. Even as we're speaking, people are trying to break into this room. So there's a lot of excitement going on here tonight. And I don't think it's for me. I think it must be for Rabbi Hecht. So tonight, it is my great privilege and honor, and with great pride, that we are going to welcome Rabbi Chana Hecht for his book launch, which he has recently launched. He'll tell us more about that, exactly where it's up to in its launch and so on. And we have guests here from the States, of course, his mother, more important, my sister, Rebbetzin Bela Hecht. Nice to have you here with us. And I also see Mrs. Tzivi Sachs. Very, very nice to have you with us too, all the way from the States. I think that's Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Los Angeles. And New York and upstate New York, Tzivi. Not Tzivi. Rabbi, you need to change your name there. Otherwise, I'm going to keep calling you Tzivi. So tonight we are looking at this book. This book is called Kabbalah of Food. And we are going to have a conversation. I think that's what it's called, a conversation with Rabbi Hecht. He would like it to be informal. So I'm going to begin by asking a number of questions to get into the mood. But towards the latter part, we will give you the opportunity if you would like to ask some questions direct. And please feel free to do so. I will say here at the very beginning, I see some of you have the book already, that this book is available. We went through, we had to cross seas to get this book. We have a stock of them in our Chabad house. And today, I'm not sure what they sell it for in the States. Maybe Rabbi Hecht can tell us that, but I can guarantee you this is the cheapest price that you will find it here in the United Kingdom, as we're doing a special offer because of this launch. And it is December, and it means it's nearly Hanukkah, and therefore it's on sale for just £10 during the course of this December till after Hanukkah. You can pop in and buy one, or after the launch you might want to buy two, but you can pop in and buy one, or you can just let us know. We're very happy to send you in the post, reasonably, not too far, of course. And let's get on with this evening. So I'm going to mute you all, and then I'm going to unmute Rabbi Hecht. Let me see if I can get this right. All right, mute you all for now. And unmute. Start speaking. Good evening, Rabbi Hecht. It is with great pleasure and indeed a great honor and with great pride, I have to say, that your aunt and uncle, who are your great aunt and uncle, and you have with us a great uncle, which is your great uncle Yitzchok, who is also here with us, to share with us a little bit about your book, Kabbalah of Food. I think I'm a little bit jealous. I have to say I'm a little bit jealous, but you're allowed to be jealous for this sort of thing. The reason is because I have been wanting to write a book for a very, very long time. But I have to tell you, it's not about food. So we're safe on that one. But I've been wanting to write a book for a very long time, and I just haven't been able to find the time or the energy possibly to actually put it from a piece of paper, that means from a manuscript, or even from thoughts in my head onto a manuscript, and eventually to a book. So therefore, I would like to start with this. Rabbi Hecht, you are a very busy shliach. You have your own Chabad house. I believe you're standing in it right now, which you can tell us a little more about. A very special place in Rhinebeck, upstate New York. You're also the co-director, I believe, I might not have the right title, of Camp Emunah, the first and biggest girls camp in New York. Was the first girls camp in Chabad Lubavitch, certainly in the States. And you are co-director of that together with your dear grandmother, Rebbetzin Chava Hecht, who you will use this opportunity to wish a continued refuah shalema, please God. So I have to start by beginning, but I'll begin by asking you, Rabbi Hecht, tell us, where did you find the time to be able to write a book?
First, let me begin by wishing each and every one of you good evening.
Thank you for having me here. It's a great honor for me to join you. As you know, Ilford is my second home, and if my wife had it her way, it'd be my first home. So depending on how you look at it, Ilford carries a very dear place in our home. First of all, I guess you are correct in we're taught that jealousy is a bad character trait, except if it comes to matters of Torah and mitzvahs and spirituality and godliness. One is allowed to be jealous. One is allowed to have envy. So in that case, technically it's allowed, but more importantly, you should know that if you make a book, I look forward to getting the first copy. And I hope it's with some of the stories of your 40 years experience in Ilford, some of the wonderful tales you have, as I know, because I spent some of my younger years, my teenage years in Ilford, and had a great impression on me, both you and Rebbetzin Devora, as well as in the entire community. So thank you very much for bringing me out tonight to speak. What was your question? Those that know me, my attention span is not that long. So,
well, the question becomes even greater then. How do you manage to write a book with an attention span of this big?
The truth is that the book would have never taken place without the publisher, Paul Cohen, who's a small independent publisher here based in the States, as well as the staff at Monkfish Publishing, Susan Piparato specifically. Guided me through the process, helped me write the book, helped me edit the book, and did everything that needed to be done. So the credit does not, of course, I'm gladly take the credit, but the credit is not due to me. But I think more importantly than how did I find time to write the book is maybe to discuss a little bit about my inspiration about food. About 5.5 years ago, I walked into my mother's home. My mother lives on Eastern Parkway across the street from 770. And I walked into my mother's home and she says, I want to show you a clip. I want to play a video for you. And she plays a video for me. It was a fascinating video. It was a young man, about 19 or 20 years old, who grew up in the Hasidic community in a Hasidic sect in Williamsburg. And he chose at the age, I don't know, of 18 or 19 years old, he chose to leave his Hasidic ways. And he says, and after this, he leaving his Hasidic ways, he got involved in cooking, and he then competed on a food show on the Food Network. Food Network is a huge network here in the United States. I believe in the United Kingdom, you also have the Food Network or something similar. And it's basically a network a cable network that's dedicated to food 24 hours a day. And he competes on the Food Network, and while he's competing, they have this interview go back and forth. And in the interview, he says, when I grew up as a Hasidic Jew, I was so restrained, so restricted because of my dietary laws, that after I left the Hasidic way and I left the Hasidic tradition, I ate a cheeseburger for the first time in my life. And when I ate the cheeseburger, my eyes opened up, my palate opened up. This was an experience that changed me. And my mother played this clip for me, and I don't know why, the blood within me just boiled. I said, this guy's a liar. He's a farce. I'm a Hasidic Jew. And anybody knows anything about me, I love eating. How could you tell me that all the food I eat is no good? So I knew that there's something wrong. And at that moment, something in the bottom of me said, if I ever have the opportunity to counteract what he said on public television, to outweigh, as we know, everything in life, you have positive and negative. So what he did on the negative, I hope that God one day gives me the opportunity to do that on the positive. And through many series of hashgacha pratis, of divine providence, I was offered to compete on the Food Network here in the United States. The Food Network is a very, very popular show called Chopped, where they have 4 competitors compete on secret ingredients. And through the secret ingredients, you have the opportunity to see if you can make it to the end of the challenge. The winner takes $10,000 reward. So it's a very, very big show here in the United States. And through a series of divine providence, I got the opportunity to compete. I spent some of my time teaching a kosher course, although since the pandemic, things have changed a little bit. But we're lucky enough that we're very close to the Culinary Institute of America, which is one of the premier culinary schools here in the United States and throughout the world. And through that connection, I had an opportunity to compete on the Food Network on the show Chopped. And my goal was to tell everybody, you should know, it is true. Keeping kosher is difficult. It is true. Following the dietary laws that the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, lays out may be challenging. But that does not mean someone cannot be a foodie. That does not mean someone can't love food. That does not mean someone can't appreciate food and cooking. In fact, this is an age-old question. In the Talmud, they record a story of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir's wife comes in the tractate of Chulin. Rabbi Meir's wife comes over to him, and she says, listen, Rabbi Meir, I'm a foodie. I love food. Why is it that God doesn't allow us to eat everything? So he says, you should know, my darling, for every taste that you have in the non-kosher, you could also experience certain flavors within the kosher itself, within following the dietary kosher laws. She said, really? I want to eat milk, milk and meat together. He said, actually, if you eat the udder of the udder of the cow is kosher. The other cow, if it's prepared properly, Code of Jewish Law discusses how it's able to be prepared. You can have the flavor of milk and meat if you cook it properly in a kosher way. And then she goes and lists a series of other things that she wants to taste. She said, I want to taste pig. She said, well, there's a certain fish in the sea. I don't know the name of the fish. I'm sorry, I can't share that secret with you tonight. But I want to taste that fish, the taste of pork. He said, not a problem. If you get this fish, it has a similar makeup. The protein is a similar makeup to pork, and you'll be able to taste that flavor. So when this Hasidic Jew got up and said that his eyes opened up, he's a liar. Rabbi Sufrin, I think you have to mute everybody, so if possible. So we have to understand that the purpose of the book is more important than how it was possible. How it was possible is through the help of many people, but more importantly, the purpose of the book, to answer your question, I know it took a very long time to come to your question, which is that we have to understand that eating is a fundamental part of Judaism. Eating is a fundamental part of why we're in this world. We're students of the Baal Shem Tov, we're students of the founder of the Hasidic movement, and one of his innovations was to embrace the physical. Beforehand, one thought they were a tzaddik, one thought they were righteous, one thought they were holy, by removing themselves from the physical world. In fact, the word ascetic sounds like a tzaddik. I don't know if it's related or not, but they had this conception in their mind that to be holy, to be a tzaddik, to be righteous, one had to remove themselves from the physical world. One had to talk the stories told of the pre-Hasidic movement, how people would roll in the snow in the winter and they would lay in ant piles in the summer because they despised their body, they despised the physical. The Baal Shem Tov came along and said the opposite. One has to embrace the physical. Man's job in this world is to embrace the physical and take materialism and turn it into spirituality and godliness. So more important than how we wrote the book, more importantly is why I wrote the book. And I guess it's not so informal. I thought it's going to be an informal discussion, but I guess it's not so informal. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, but before I go on to my next question, so tell us what happened. So tell us what happened on CHOP. What did you learn from there? What did you share with others? How did you use that as a tool for teaching and learning?
So it's very, very interesting. Yes, a good question. When I went in with two goals. Goal number one, to make a Kiddush Hashem, to make a good showing for the Jewish people. And goal number two is to expose them for the anti-Semitic. No, I'm just teasing. Goal number two was to have a good time. I said, if I'm going under a situation that's high pressure and high stress, I got to have a good time. So I went in with these two goals. It was a competition of a pastor, a monk, a sister, and a rabbi who competed. And that's who competed.
Some good jokes about that. I'm sure there's some good jokes about that. We'll have to catch up later.
And the challenge I had, well, I should say before in the background was when they called me to interview me, they said, is there anything that you're not allowed to do? I said, actually, from the literal letter of the law, technically, if one looks at Code of Jewish Law, I may be permitted to cook pork or to cook shellfish. But understand that if you put that as a secret ingredient, I'm not going to cook with it. So even though maybe from the literal letter of law, I could cook a piece of pork, I don't think that a rabbi going on national television, the right thing to do is cook pork. So they were very accommodating. All the food that they gave was actually kosher food. However, the equipment in the kitchen was not a kosher kitchen. So I was limited in not being able to taste the food. And in fact, when I come up to the tribunal, the judges, to taste the food, what did they say I was missing? Salt. Now, anybody that knows my Baba suffering, this is the biggest sin in the world, that you didn't put enough salt in the food. But the interesting thing is that salt you can't smell, and salt you can't see. So it's something that the only way to know if there's enough salt in a dish is if you can taste it. So technically, that not being able to taste actually limited my capabilities of cooking. Now, I'm not saying had I been able to taste the food, I would have done better. But I was lucky enough to become a finalist, which means that I made it to the last round. And I felt that I won, although I did not leave with the title champion, because I think that at some level I did have a good time. And at some level I was able to represent Yiddishkeit, to represent Judaism, and make a Kiddush Hashem, which was the most important thing. It's very interesting. I mean,
where did the chop come in relation to where you were up to in putting this book together?
That's the show was filmed before I put this book together. So this was technically, it was a stepping stone at some level. I mean, everything that we go through in life is a stepping stone, but it was a stepping stone towards that direction. I was encouraged by others to put together a cookbook. I said, I'm not doing a cookbook. I'm a rabbi. I'm not a chef. But I felt that if it's tied in, and that's why I always say, if this book is not a cookbook, it's a book about food. It includes recipes, but it's a book about food. Sorry.
Which brings me nicely into the next question, and that is, I have looked through the book. I haven't read it word to word, but I did look at your stories, and I was trying to get my head around what is Rabbi Hanochi actually trying to present to the world. There are many cookbooks and many kosher cookbooks, but if you look at your title in itself, it almost seems like a contradiction: Kabbalah and food. And as I'm working through your book, I see how you integrate it. So I want to, in due course, I might be able to ask you some of the questions in relation to Kabbalah and Chassidut. I have to say that the majority of the people that have joined us tonight are those that participate in other classes that we have, which are all integrated with Hasidic philosophy and Hasidic's relation to Kabbalah. So it comes out in your book, and I think you'll have an opportunity hopefully to be able to explain the differences there and how it came through. But the question in the first place is, to me, it would seem like you're looking at a cookbook and saying Kabbalah and food. There's a certain intrigue there. Why the name? Why have you called it this such?
So that's a very, very good question. And in particular, if I can strengthen your question, which is, besides for physicality, why did God create physicality? Why did God create man in a way that you need sustenance? There's a limited amount of time that a person can go without sustenance. Don't eat breakfast, and by lunch we're all grouchy. And certainly if you multiply that, it only gets worse. Go a day without eating. A fast day is never easy. There's a physical aspect and there's a psychological aspect of not eating. So God created this being in a world that is so connected to physical, so dependent on sustenance. And yet, what does he ask us to do? He asks us to do spiritual work. He asks us to pray. He asks us to put on tefillin, say Shema. These are all more on the spiritual side. Of course, there are physical mitzvahs of giving tzedakah and helping your neighbor. But many of the mitzvahs are spiritual in form. Saying the Shema twice a day, in the morning, at night, is a spiritual mitzvah. Of course, one has to verbalize the line of the Shema. But nevertheless, they still, the Code of Jewish Law writes that if you don't have proper concentration during the first verse of Shema, you don't fulfill your obligation. So we see that it's a meditative spiritual goal in the saying of the Shema. And yet we find ourselves to be physical beings, that everything we need is physical. which really brings us into one ask the question, what is the goal that God created the world? God created the world, and this is the basic tenets of Kabbalah, is God created the world that we take physicality and make it into spirituality. And this is shown at the highest level with food. So which means that first I have to make sure that the food is kosher food. Kosher food in each category of food, whether it's vegetation, whether it's animal, whether it's byproducts of animals, all of these categories have laws of kashrut. Meaning just because you have a piece of lettuce in the store doesn't mean it's necessarily was grown kosherly, doesn't mean you can eat it. Has to be grown in a certain way. It has to be prepared in a certain way. Just use example of a piece of lettuce. This concept of crossbreeding for farmers, which means the agricultural part that gets to, once you have it in your home, you have to make sure that it's properly washed and there's no infestation of insects, etc. Then you have to make a blessing on the food. You have to make an after blessing on the food. Then you have to make sure that the energy you get from the food that you eat, you use for a good cause. So there's so many steps in the way. And on the other hand, it's something that we all desire throughout the day. Every 20 minutes, we're thinking about food. Well, not you, but me. Every 20 minutes, what I ate for lunch, what I'm going to eat for dinner, when I'm going to eat dinner, etc. So our whole being. On the other hand, we find that there's a fascinating mitzvah in the Torah. There's a mitzvah to eat. When it comes to the holidays, when it comes to Shabbat, there's a concept of oneg Shabbat, of having pleasure within the day. And one of the ways this is experienced is through eating. To add to that, every single holiday is connected. What we should eat, when we should eat, where we should eat it, how we should eat, we shouldn't eat, we should eat. Even Yom Kippur, which you shouldn't eat, you're supposed to eat before Yom Kippur, you're not supposed to eat during Yom Kippur, after Yom Kippur, so there's so much connected to food within our daily activities of simply connecting to God.
Okay, and
the Kabbalah,
carry on, and the Kabbalah?
And Kabbalah and Hasidus highlights take the physical, take the spiritual, take the pleasure and joy of eating and turn it into something godly, which means that every bite of a burger, every bite of, I guess in England, fish and chips, you have to do it in a way that you're having enjoyment and pleasure in the physical world. Torah and Judaism embraces pleasure. Of course, it has to be done in the proper context.
Okay, thank you. Now, I see that your book is made up of 235 pages.
Oh, that's better. I wouldn't know the answer to that question.
I guess the 236 page could be I Love My Uncle Arya, but it wasn't on there. But okay, there's 235 pages. Now, when you read
that page gets handwritten.
Handwritten, thank you. So when you look at a cookbook, the first thing you would imagine when you open it, as with others, you go straight to recipe. I see that you have almost, I think, 153 pages of writings before you get to the 235 pages, which means that there's less than 100, there's more, 150, approximately 150 pages of writings and possibly 100 pages of menus, or whatever they call it, recipes. Do you feel that by presenting this book that the recipes are secondary to the teachings that you wanted to put forth?
Is my publisher listening or no? I have to look on your Zoom. My publisher is tuned in and they get me in trouble. The answer is no. When putting together the book, we went through a lot of different stages. Should we do a story and a recipe? Should we do a back and forth? Ultimately, it came out that this is the best way to group it together. I'm not in the business of publishing. This is what the publisher felt is the best way to lay out the book. It's not the one or it's a package deal. So those that are more interested in the stories will spend time on the stories of some of the insights. I tried as best as possible with the insights, with the teachings, to take very deep Kabbalistic concepts and put it in 1 or 2 paragraphs. That was my goal. So to take different concepts about food, and just use an example over there, we talk about milk and the energy of milk. So many people say, why, Rabbi, the reason why you can't eat milk and meat is because before there was hygiene, there was an issue of cleanliness in the vessels, and they mixed milk and meat together in the same vessel, people got sick. I said, that's not true. It's false. First of all, it's false because you think that my ancestors couldn't keep proper hygiene. So that, first of all, it's offensive on that level. My great grandfather Moses knew how to keep himself clean and keep his dishes clean. The second level is the Torah is forever, it's everlasting, and therefore the laws are everlasting. And Kabbalah discusses that mixing milk and meat together. Meat represents one level of divine energy. Milk represents another level of divine energy. And mixing them together, you create a cosmic effect that's explosion for a Jewish person's soul. You're given a godly soul. This godly soul is highly, highly allergic to milk and meat mixed together, as we see in the physical world. One person is allergic to gluten. The other person is allergic to fish. And everybody has their allergies. Our soul is designed, the DNA of our soul is designed that we're allergic to the mixture of the energies of milk and meat. So one of the teachings I have is discussing what is the energy of milk. Why does milk have the power to nourish? Why a mother has a baby, and this is true in the animal kingdom as amongst human beings as well, that a mother feeds their baby for the first few months is being sustained in nourishment from mother's milk. What's so powerful about milk? Milk comes from the level of chesed, of kindness. So it's a concept of giving. Loving kindness is to give. So that's why you see a mother gives her nourishment to her baby, to her child, through milk. So milk represents that level, that energy. I'm sorry, you were.
Yeah, so you did mention that you tried to bring Hasidic concepts into the book, and I see that. I see you even mentioned Chagas, which I don't know what that means, but not necessarily everybody in the group. So I think for people watching and listening and trying to come to grips with this title, I'm still on this title, is can you, and you talk about it, and maybe you can highlight where and how you speak about it, the difference between, let's refer it to Kabbalah and Hasidut. And these are terms which we refer to often in our discussion groups and learning groups. So is there a way that you said you put it into a few sentences or to a few words in order to explain these concepts? How would you explain the difference between Kabbalah and Hasidut and how it comes through your book?
So it's very interesting you mentioned the difference between Kabbalah. Today, many people interchange Kabbalah and Hasidus. Yeah. It's very interesting. And at some level, that's correct. Kabbalah and Hasidus both represent the secrets of the Torah, the mystical part of the Torah. So therefore, they're interchangeable. On the other hand, they're very, very different. And the way that the main way that Kabbalah and Hasidus is different is Kabbalah focuses on our relationship between the God and the world. How does God interact with the world? Hasidus focus is on the microcosmic level of that, which is how does our soul interact with our body? And they mirror each other, obviously each one carrying its own detail. But where they united on is that both Kabbalah and Hasidus understand that in order to achieve the highest level of godliness, the highest level of spirituality, is only through practical mitzvot, only through action-oriented mitzvot. And that one of the ways of accomplishing that is through food.
This is, I said to you on Tuesday night, is usually our shir. And at the moment, we're working through the book of Genesis. So Jacob and Esau, Yaakov and Esau. And I see that you have actually highlighted, it's always a question that we ask, and I think you bring out in your book, but you can talk about it. And that is Jacob and Esau. This is the issue with the blessings. Everybody will remember this, that Jacob had to dress up in Esau's clothes in order to be able to get the blessing from his father Isaac, who had asked his wife, their mother Rebecca, to prepare for him food. Now, this is always a fascinating question, that this is the most, you would think, the most spiritual time in a person's life. They're coming towards the end of their life and they want to give blessings for continuity to their next generation. And the only thing he could think of was food. He wanted Shnei Gedurim, he wanted and specifically 2 goats, and he had to prepare it in a special way. And his wife tells the son, go and get it, because the other kid's going to go and get it. And this is what was on both both on Isaac's mind and Rebecca's mind as to food at this particular time in a particular way, when we're at the most important part in our life, which is passing on, which is important to us, the the generation of our patriarchs going now from Isaac to Jacob, and this is all they can think about is food. You mention it, so maybe you'd like to highlight it.
So it's a very good question. Not only that, it's mata'amin. He says, give me what I love to eat. I want to, and this is, he thinks he's on his deathbed. You know, if you think you're on your deathbed, you want to bless your children. First, I got to eat good food. I mean, it's a little paradoxical. Our forefather Isaac, on some level, the holiest of our forefathers, he was the one that was fit to go up on the Akedah, to go up on the altar and be a perfect sacrifice to God. And what does he do after? He thinks he's dying. He thinks he's on his deathbed. He lived a lot longer after that. He thinks he's on his deathbed and says, you want a blessing? I got to eat. And not only I got to eat, you know.
Good steak, good steaks, right? Good steaks.
Yeah, good steak. That's right. In America, there's a fancy restaurant in Manhattan called Reserve Cut. You know, I first got it, you know, for 200 quid a steak, you know. So I have to first go to get the steak from Reserve Cut before I can bless you. But there's a fascinating story of told in the book, actually, of the father of Michal of Zlochev. It was very common in those days that there was a wealthy man in the shtetl, and he wanted people to sit and study Torah. So he would set up a kollel. Kollel is an institution where married men would sit and study, and he would cover all their expenses, which is a common partnership between what's called a Zevulun Yisachar partnership. That Zevulun is the businessman. He goes out and makes a living. Yisachar sits and studies Torah. And Zevulun supports Yisachar, and they share in the reward of Yisachar studying Torah. So this was the relationship they had. This gentleman was wealthy. He went ahead and built a shul, and had 10 families that he supported, and these 10 men sat all day and all night to study Torah. One day, this rich guy, this philanthropist, his daughter is sick. So he comes into a Beis Medrash and he says, listen, everybody, normally I give you 1,000 rubles a month. My daughter is sick. I'm going to give each and every one of you 100 ruble bonus. I'm going to give you this bonus. And please, in honor of the bonus, the extra charity, please pray for my daughter to have a speedy recovery. So the 9 out of the 10 guys take the money and they go ahead and they say, all right, the philanthropist, you know, the rich guy's daughter's sick. Let us fast. Let us pray. And that's what they do. They fast and pray. The father of Michal of Zlochev takes the 100 ruble. He comes home to his wife. He says, honey, I got a bonus. Take the money. Go to the marketplace. Buy food, buy fish and meat. We're making a party tonight in the house. And that's what she does. She goes, she buys all the food in the marketplace. She comes home, she bakes cake and she makes challah, and they make a major meal as if it's a great holiday, as if we're kind of America. We have Thanksgiving. It's if it was Thanksgiving dinner. I don't know in the UK, the equivalent holiday. So it's a great feast. They sit down, they have a wonderful time. The other students in the kollel, they get very resentful. What do you mean? We sit and pray and fast, and he takes it as a joke, takes up the money, goes makes a party. Okay, they don't say anything, but the resentment is there. And when the resentment is there, it doesn't go away so quickly. Sure enough, this philanthropist's daughter gets better. After he gets better, he throws a sudot hoda'ah, a feast to thank God. Thank God his daughter got better. He wants to thank God. He makes a big feast. And he throws a feast, and all the men of the kollel, these gentlemen come and sit at the feast, and they say l'chaim together, and they celebrate. Of course, the resentment is still there. The other 9 guys still resent this guy. So they whisper to the philanthropist, they say, look, that guy's sitting here at the table, partying with us for your daughter getting better. He did nothing. When it came to pray and fast, he was at his home. He took your bonus and made a party. What is he happy your daughter was sick? And the rich philanthropist, he thinks, I said, this is a big problem. Calls the guy aside, says, listen, I just heard this story about you. How do you do it? I give you money to pray for my daughter, and you take it as a joke. You take it that you should go and make a party in your house and make fun, make chayzik, as they say. So he looks at the philanthropist and says, no, you got it all wrong. Let me explain it to you. If I would fast and pray, what would happen in heaven? They'd say, oh, he's fasting again, he's praying again, no big deal. He does it every day of the week. He said, I came home, I threw a feast. The angels in heaven, they saw a party. He said, why is there a party? It's a Tuesday afternoon. What's so special about today? So, well, he got a bonus from the philanthropist. Oh, he got a bonus. Why would he do something? Oh, his daughter needs healing. Oh, his daughter needs healing. Let us bring healing. Let us give the blessing of healing. So he said that the commotion in heaven, the excitement in heaven would not come about through me fasting or removing myself and praying all day, remove myself from the physical and praying all day. On the contrary, it's through my eating that created the excitement up in heaven. So we talk about Kabbalah and Hasidus, where it is interchangeable, is they both focus on using the physical to achieve the greatest level of godliness, to achieve the greatest level of spirituality. Most people today, I live in a rural area, and over here there's a few different centers that focuses on spirituality. Most of the groups that they have, you go out with a guru, you sit on a mountain for a few days, you don't talk, you eat very little, and you focus on spiritual. You look at the mountain and the sunset and the sunrise, and these are beautiful, beautiful, even spiritual experiences. But we have to understand, if you want to reach the highest level of spirituality, the highest level of godliness, it's not through removing yourself from the physical, but it's actually through embracing the physical.
Thank you very much.
So I don't know if I answered.
Thank you very much. That was a very beautiful story. Same summary of that same one. Where are we? That was a beautiful story. I've lost you. Where are you? Rabbi, where are you?
I'm still here.
Are you there? Okay. I want to ask you, I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to put it to our lovely crowd here today. You've written many stories. I have a favorite story. I bet you can't guess which is my favorite story. I won't put you through that agony, but you have many, many stories. The very last one, page 100, 150. What's with this? Excuse me. Barbarusi. Barbaliza. Louise. Oh, Barbara Louisa. Okay, I've just muted. No, I'm losing. Yeah. You keep unmuting yourself. Why do you do that? Okay. It's called, and everyone's going to have a laugh here, it's called The Untouched Whiskey Distillery. That was my favorite story. So I want to ask you from all the stories that you have here, which would you say is your favorite story?
See, I actually took that as a little bit of offense. I thought you would appreciate the story in the introduction of the book.
I'm past. We've got different sections. I'm past that. It's a different section.
Something wrong with mine.
I'll tell you why I thought that would be your favorite story in the book. Because when I was a young man, I remember you coming and visiting us in New York. When you were also younger, I was a kid, and I had the pleasure of you sometimes taking me to school. So that was never, for me at least, it was never a pleasurable experience, as I wasn't one that loved going to school, to say the least.
Can I continue the story? I used to drive a bus for the school. You know, those big yellow school buses. Yeah, those big yellow school. Yeah, I used to do lots of things before I came a rabbi. If things go bad, I can always become bus driver. There's always somewhere to go. Some people become an Uber driver. I could become a bus driver. The big yellow. So I used to do a school run. Used to earn a few bobkas. A school run every day, and I used to come around because my sister, who was here, I don't know if she still is. So do me a favor, maybe you'll come around. It's not part of your thing, but come around, take the kids to school. And this kid never wanted to go to school. Eventually, he came to school. We couldn't find him in school. He was hiding under the seats in the bus. He would never even go to school. So how he managed to write a whole book when he never went to school, I'm not quite sure, but he did mention that it was a publisher, but we'll give you that bit. Anyway, thank God you've grown up from there, and so have I. I'm no longer a bus driver. Instead, I deliver milk on Tuesdays in the morning, and I build menorahs as a handyman when we need. But thank God we've all grown up. Go on, carry on. So that's
in the introduction of the book, I share a story that when I was a kid, I didn't do too well at school.
Yeah.
I I had a little bit, if I was there, I had a little bit of a fresh mouth, as they say, and the teachers, certainly then, I don't know about now, they didn't appreciate that. So they would send you out, they'd throw you out of class. If you hung out of class in the hallway, this was pre-video cameras. I feel bad for the kids today. Everything's caught on tape. But before pre-video cameras, if you hung out in the hall, the principals, every few, that rotations, and you would get caught. If you got caught, they'd take you to the office, they'd call your parents, you're in big trouble. So I befriended the cook in school. So when I get thrown out of class, I'd be able to go to the kitchen and hang out in the kitchen and volunteer my services. So I wouldn't get caught by the principals, and my parents would never find out that I got thrown out of school. But spending time in Ilford, I know that I'm sure that your favorite story is the distillery, because you're thinking like many of us are thinking, how can we get a hand on that schuyr, as they say, that booze, if we can say, to try to get a hold of it.
Nice.
Yeah. So I know before we go into questions, I think you're going into a few questions. I just want to say once again, it's really an honor and a pleasure that you allowed me to spend some time with you this evening. It is a great pleasure. I do miss Ilford tremendously. And maybe post-pandemic has we shifted some of our values and some of our sites. So maybe we should come and visit again after they unlocked down the UK and they unlocked America, and hopefully, please God, the healing and the blessing that's needed in the world comes to us very, very quickly. Of course, with the greatest of all blessing, the end of the exile, because it's too long and too difficult for us, and the Jewish people have been through the ringer, as they say in America, quite some time, and as they say, enough is enough. So hopefully with the blessing of health comes along the blessing of Mashiach as well.
Thank you very much. We'll come back to a summary at the end. Let's anybody would like to ask a question, we could do this a couple of ways, because we want to try and do this in some form of order. So you could either put a question in the chat to me and I'll ask on your behalf, or if you want to unmute yourselves one at a time and ask a question, then please do. Maybe put your hand up, make it a bit easier for us. I can see your hands. I can't unless you're picking your nose in a minute. Is anybody particularly want to ask a question?
Look, there's no questions. Look how
no, if there's no questions, I'm going to carry on speaking if there's no questions. Mandy, go. This is number 3291461 iPad is Mandy Tobias. Go on, Mandy.
I want to be anonymous. Okay. So
it's the anonymous Mandy Tobias.
No, I don't really. Okay, so thank you. It's been fantastic. I'm really enjoying it, and obviously I'm going to take great pleasure in reading your book. I want to go back to when you appeared on Chopped, and I understand that you couldn't taste because it wasn't kasher or your equipment. Did they not suggest that you do that? Because in order for you to see whether or not the food is good, you have to taste it. So I'm really surprised that they wouldn't let you, make all your utensils and everything kasher for the occasion, for the filming.
So when one of the interviews I had over the phone, I said, by the way, if you want me to come in and kosher the facility beforehand, I'd be happy to do it. And I heard like a long pause on the phone. I said, well, maybe I should have said that. I don't think they're calling me back tomorrow. Thank God they called me back, but I never brought it up again. First of all, do they have Chopped in the UK?
We have, and I'm a real food television addict, but and I have seen Chopped, but I don't know how it links up to the States. So I've got to try and investigate. When were you on?
So Hulu actually, I don't know. Hulu in America is big. I know that the Food Network carries most of their shows on Hulu. So if you have Hulu, it's available. I think it's called Leap of Faith. I think it's like season 28 or something like that.
Okay.
But I should mention subsequently, there has been other kosher contestants here in the U.S. and they did, from what I'm told, they did kosher the kitchen, so they were able to taste it. So although I did not get to taste it, subsequently there were others that did taste it. But then again, if I tasted my food, I'm not so sure it would have been any better. I'm probably better off that I couldn't taste it.
You became a finalist. You didn't do that bad.
It's up to me. If it's up to me, it's never spicy enough. It's never, I'm probably better off.
Mandy, I'll tell you what his father probably said. Did you come home with a check or not? If you came home with a check, you won. You didn't come home with a check? That's it. But thank you for that question. Next, anybody else like to ask something? It's not often you get, I saw my hand go up, but I'm just speaking like this. I'm going to ask my own question. Lisa, did you just put your hand up?
She moved her hair.
She moved her hair. Anybody else like to ask a question?
I will ask another one if I may then.
Well, hold on, Mandy. Paul, go ahead. I think you can unmute you. I can do it. Okay. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay. Hi, Rabbi. Can you hear me?
Oh.
Yes, we can.
Good. It's a double-part question.
Always.
This is Rabbi Heck, not Rabbi Suffren. Do you cook at home? Does your wife let you in the kitchen? And if you do, what do you cook?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say I'm pretty surprised not one person was eating dinner during this. I figured everybody would be eating.
Hold on. We were. I just unmuted.
Oh, he's got the food.
Why do you think there's so many black screens?
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah. So to answer your first question is, I would like to cook at home, but my wife would not have me in the kitchen at all. I think that she's happier with a clean kitchen than having me cook. So that's number one. Having said that, the truth is that there's a story in the book, and I'm not going to tell it in great detail, about I say it as the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, but in the book, there's a book called Hasidic Tales, and over there he records it under the Chose of Lublin, the seer of Lublin, and how he had a custom to always prepare his food or some level of preparation for his food that he would eat on Shabbat. And I because of time, I'm not going to go into the whole details of the story, but it's a fascinating story in the book that we have. And I try to do that come to Shabbat, I try to do at least my hand should be in some level of preparation. So I know when I sit down at the meal, and I'm not saying I ever do, but if I'm able to achieve a level of holiness through einig, through pleasure of eating on Shabbat, at least I should have had some of the mitzvah of preparation as well. We know this is true with the special mitzvah of matzah, that all the greatest Hasidic Rebbes were always involved in the mitzvah of making matzah. First, they went the night before and they collected water for the matzah. It's called Mayim Shalonu, and later they baked the matzah. And one of the reasons is because it was such a special mitzvah, they wanted to be involved in the process of making matzah. And so too, I think for Shabbat, I try to get into the kitchen. I see what my wife has not made or what my wife plans on making, and I try to do one dish and get out before that she knows that I was in the kitchen and made a mess. If I get in quickly and I get out quickly, I don't get caught.
Grant, it's nice to see you with us, Grant. I know you are a chef, I believe. Yes. Well, you will certainly work around the kitchen, in the kitchen, and food.
Yes.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Can I ask you how do you feel about what you've heard tonight in relation to the chop or the book? He ran away on me. Is there a reason?
Such a tough question.
He's gone to get.
Sorry, I thought I heard something outside. No, I find it very interesting. As I say, Rabbi said I'm a chef. I do find it, but I try not. Everybody asks me always, all the time, do I try the food when I'm in work? So if it's vegetables, I would try it. I know you shouldn't, and I know it's because it's not 100% kosher, but I do try it. But if it's meat, if it's any meat, then I don't try it at all. So I think that's really completely. I know you said you didn't taste any of it because of the pots not being kosher, but it's very difficult to be able to try and do that, and the boss is not to sort of be a bit annoyed and like that. So if it's vegetables, I'll taste a little bit, but if it's anything to do with meat, I won't taste it. And I'm wearing gloves if it's meat, so for as long as I don't bring it to the house,
Do you follow recipes from books and stuff like that?
No,
It's
it's
all
all
your own.
stuff. It's all no, it's all stuff that we get told what some. So we have had some, but we do the recipes so much that we just know how to do it, so it can come
Well,
around
maybe-
again and again.
Grant,
Yeah.
maybe there's another book coming there. Grant, maybe you're the one making a book. I'll tell you, Rabbi Hecht, something interesting which you mentioned before about the salt and not tasting it. Everything is divine providence. Every morning there's a number of people here on it. I do what's called a 10-10, a 10 minutes of inspiration since the first lockdown on Facebook Live. And this morning, and at the moment, we're going through the mitzvahs of the Rambam of Maimonides, according to the Sefer HaMitzvah. And the mitzvah that we learnt today was Al Kol Korboncha Takriv Melach, that on all your sacrifices, you should have salt. So I just thought it was a divine providence for sure that those who were here this morning with us should hear that the salt was the only ingredient that you were struggling with at the time. The other thing that came to me, which was which I would like to give you a blessing, actually, which you just said now, and that is when Mandy was looking, or somebody's going to be looking for your Chop series, where you said, I think you said you can find on YouTube or wherever, Facebook, wherever it is. You said you think it was series number 28. Series number 28 is Koach, as you know, which is strength. And we would like to bless you with added strength in all of that you do and undertake. And on a personal note, you know, I've seen your Chabad house, and I've seen much of the work that you've undertaken in addition to your own responsibilities in your own little town. And I'm not belittling the fact that it's a little town. It is a little town. The spiritual idea of sitting on a mountain and just taking in the mountains, I'm open to that anytime. So you know, if we have an opportunity for that, I think in a previous life I was a farmer. I'm not really made for these concrete jungles. So maybe between the bus driving and the and contemplating my navel on the mountain, maybe I need to come up to where you are. But really, you have a tremendous koyach, you have a tremendous strength, and an ability to be able to put into action what's really going on in your mind. And even the stories that you tell in relation in jest, and then one shouldn't really, I'm into self-esteem and all that. So a little less of the jest about your own miscomings rather than your achievements better. And not being in the classroom and perhaps not attaining what others might have been. I just wonder what happened if you would have ended up in someone's classroom, maybe a scientist's classroom instead of the kitchen. Maybe you would have been an astronaut. I don't know. But the important thing is that you actually take your experiences and you've put them into this book. What I like about this book, I have to tell you, is after having dissected it a little bit, it is so much more than a book of recipes. And you brought it out yourself by saying that you didn't want to just bring out a recipe book. This is so much more. And it's very rich. It's very rich. I don't know what the recipe is about. I'm not a cook. And only the best thing I can make is cholent, and you don't need a recipe for that. So the recipes, I'm sure, are great as well because they're all your own. But it is the lessons that you teach about the connection, our spiritual connection to the Almighty, that is brought about through food. And food, for all of us, we talk about physical food and spiritual food. And of course, physical food is how we maintain our bodies, and spiritual food is how we maintain our souls. So, and therefore, Mrs. Safran wants me to mention your lunch and learn tomorrow. So you're going to be lunching and learning. You're learning. Maybe you're going to lunch one of these recipes, I don't know. But to you, Rabbi Hecht, we want to take this opportunity of wishing you continued koyach and continued strength and continued success in all of your endeavors, together with Tivi, together with your wife. And we a special prayer here to your mother who's watching tonight to give you, I'm sure she has great nachas from you. I have one final question, if you don't mind. Can I know you come from a large family, Baruch Hashem, may you all be blessed. So when you write a book like this, how many of them do you have to give away free to your sisters, to your brothers-in-laws, to your sisters-in-laws? Can I know her? You have your cousins, your aunts, your nephews and nieces who are now grown up on themselves and already almost have homes of their own, if not So did you have to give a lot of them away?
So you bring up a very good point because my son's Mendel's bar mitzvah was in June. And we thought we're going to have this big bar mitzvah celebration to be right when the book is going to be launched. So we'll give every person that comes to the bar mitzvah as a little thing. We'll give them a book. So thank God the pandemic hit, so I didn't have to buy that many books to give out to the family. So as I tell everybody who wants a free book, I might as well give you the money because I pay for the books myself. So since I have to buy it in the store, you might as well just save me the trip and you go to the store yourself. Of course, they don't like that. Yeah.
So anybody comes and visit you at Chabad House, you'll give them a book free, especially if they came tonight.
If they came from the UK. You know.
And just to conclude for us, you're standing, I've been to your place. I know the beauty of your Chabad House. I think our friends here would benefit from hearing a little bit about what you've done. Your great uncle would like to know if you bring out a sequel to this book called The Kabbalah of Drink.
That's a good one.
It's a good one. Maybe we'll buy 2 of each of those.
Not the Kabbalah, the Kabal.
Oh, the Kabbalah. I thought it was a spelling mistake. Okay, so just tell us a little bit about your Chabad House. And if I'm not mistaken, you're actually standing in front of your ark. You're standing in front of your Aron.
I am standing in front of my ark.
There's something special about those doors. So just show us that a little bit. I think it's a beautiful insight.
A more special is the big window. Can you see the big window? The big
Yes.
window is the. So we live in a very small community. We're very, very blessed. Our community pre-pandemic was, I would say, 50% weekenders, which means people that live in New York City and come up on the weekend. And then post-pandemic, and 50% locals. Post-pandemic, it's like 95%. Everybody made the journey from the city to move up here because of the pandemic. We're very, very blessed. It's a small town. It's a quaint little village. And when we moved to our property in 2012, there was a barn here that was, I don't know if everybody's familiar, but there's the Astor family, which was one of the original wealthy billionaire families at the turn of the 20th century. I think they were in building railroads in the United States, something like that. And they had the massive estates over here. And the barn that was on the property was a over 100-year-old barn that was originally part of one of their estates. So we started designing the shul. We figured that if there's a concept in the Torah called Bal Tashlis, of not wasting, you can't just demolish a building and throw all the material in the garbage. So we disassembled, of course, it's a nice idea, but of course it costed 3 times the money. But we disassembled the wood, and all the wood we use, if you see the doors of the ark, as well as the beam, all the wood furnishing in the shul is rebuilt with that old wood. So it's a small shul, but it's a very, very beautiful shul, and Baruch Hashem, it served us well. But I like to point out the window on top. Can you see the window? Yeah. The window on top is actually, there's a local artist. We had tried to have local artists involved in the project. There's a local artist. Her mother was a survivor from the city of Lida in Poland. And in 1941, the Nazis came in and they destroyed her shul. And her mother had a little postcard of the shul. And that window is exact. She does stained glass, and she made it it was a black and white photo. So I guess the color was her own art, but it's an exact replica of that shul that was destroyed by the Nazis, which to me is the most important thing, that Judaism is the continuity of the next generation. And no matter what the trials and tribulations the Jewish people have faced, the Jewish people, the spirit lives on, and we have to pass on the baton from generation to generation. And we have to remember that this exile is a very long and deep exile. And if we have to do our part, we have to eat more to make this place a greater dwelling place for God, to bring about ultimately the final redemption, which will usher in you have to remember, the final redemption. How are we going to celebrate it? We're going to eat from the Leviathan. We're going to eat from the Leviathan, which is going to be good sushi. And then we're going to eat from the Shor HaBar, the great ox. So we're going to have good steak. So at the party to celebrate Mashiach, we're going to have sushi and steak. I mean, it's going to be a great celebration. So it doesn't get better than that.
Indeed. Rabbi Hecht, we're just going to close. But if you want to know if you achieved anything here tonight with your book, and I'm sure it'll be replicated all over, you just need to read the messages in the chat. And there's a lovely young lady who's messaged here saying there's 2 of her favorite subjects in this book. And I don't think she's referring to the food element of it. The food is the 3rd element of it. So I believe that this is really going to, I don't know how many you printed or how many you intend to sell or how many you have sold, but I'm sure that it's going to reach not just the States, it's already reached here, and Europe, I understand as well, but I'm sure world over as well. And may the Almighty give you the ability to be able to write more, to learn more, to write more, and to, as the Rebbe told us, Hamaiso Ikem, deed is the most important things. And there are so many ways that we can reach out to people, and you've certainly achieved something amazing with this book, and we wish you every success. So on behalf of everybody here this evening, we want to thank you for giving us of your time, and we hope that both we will be able to travel to you in due course, and you'll be able to visit us together with your family, and enhance another evening for us, if not an entire weekend, which would be lovely. Thank you very much, Rabbi.
And before we go, can I tell the people who live in London that in the spring, normally Lord Astor's property at 2 Temple Place, it's open for very interesting art exhibitions. Free, easy to get to, and well worth a visit.
That's our dear Natalie, who is a world of information. There we go. Thank you very much, Natalie, for that. Before we close for this evening, can I just remind everybody, as you just heard, you've got your lunch and learn tomorrow, but we're coming up to Hanukkah, and this Hanukkah is going to be an amazing Hanukkah. It's completely different, but it's actually going to be greater than any Hanukkah we've ever had before. Beginning Thursday evening at 6:30. This is the first opportunity you have to live, it's not live Zoom, it's live stream beginning in Epping, 6:30. We have a new menorah there. Rabbi and Mrs. Posen this year managed to get a menorah on the high street there. This is our 7th menorah. We're very, very excited. And from there, please do not come to the event, but you'll see it live on www.jewishessex.com. And there's a box there already. You can go and you can see it there. Obviously, it's not live yet. And that's where you'll be able to see it there. The one after that will be Saturday night at Gants Hill, Sunday at Buckhurst Hill, and we go right through until Thursday. And Thursday night is our drive-in. This is going to be an amazing event. There's about 30 places left at the moment. Already over 1,000 people have booked in. We don't have an event where 1,000 people come to one of our Hanukkah events. Accumulated, yes. So it's really special. A live concert, juggling, food. It's going to be amazing. And I have to say, I'm pleased to see that Rabbi Brahman is here with us. Rabbi Brahman, thank God this has been led by our younger shluchim, Rabbi Brahman and Rabbi Posen. They're really taking a lead on this, and it's going to be an amazing event. Thank you, Rabbi Brahman. It's nice to see you here tonight as well. Also, as we said, Rabbi Posen was exempted because he's busy with his menorah, and you likewise. There's so much yet to do. So thank you, everybody, and please do join us for Hanukkah tomorrow morning, 10:10. We'll continue learning the laws of the Rambam. And yes, please. Pardon? What do you say? And thank you once again, Rabbi Hecht. Thank you for joining us. It's been a special evening. Really enjoyed it, and we hope you enjoyed it too. And we look forward to seeing you very soon again. Good night. And
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Fabulous.
Thank you. Wonderful evening. Thank you.